And welcome to Hannity. And tonight we're only 4 days away from the Republican primary in South Carolina. And according to the Real Clear Politics average out of the Palmetto State, Donald Trump has a double-digit lead over his rivals with 36.3%. Ted Cruz is in second with 17.8%. Marco Rubio in third with 15.8%. As all of the candidates now look to make gains in the polls ahead of this Saturday's primary, well, rhetoric out on the campaign trail, it's getting very heated. Take a look at this.
I pointed out Donald's record of being pro-choice for 60 years, of supporting partial birth abortion, and I pointed out that Donald, even today, supports taxpayer funding for Planned Parenthood. And Marco's position right now is he supports a pathway to citizenship for the 12 million people who are here illegally.
This has been a pattern now with Ted. I mean, he spent the last 2 weeks literally just making stuff up. Even today, he's out there giving a speech on national defense. He's just ignoring his record on it. Every national defense authorization bill that he's had a chance to vote on, he's voted against. Every single one. And those are the bills that authorize spending on Fort Jackson, on the Armory here, on troop pay increases.
Marco Rubio, who's a great guy, believes in increased defense spending, but he claims he has foreign policy experience because he goes to committee hearings.
Bush made a statement. It was like this jumbled up statement with all sorts of, it was ridiculous. And everyone said, yeah, yeah, yeah. But, you know, Ted holds up the Bible, and then he lies about so many things. And, these are lies.
All right, here with reaction, the author of the New York Times bestseller, Duplicity, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. All right, so you won South Carolina. This is very predictable. I can give you the history, give our audience the history of this. Does any of this rhetoric this week surprise you heading into Saturday?
I think it's pretty tough, even by South Carolina standards.
Yeah.
And when you have everybody yelling, you're a liar, you're a liar, you're a liar, it's pretty strange. But I have to take 3 seconds, Sean, to say, I think the Hillary barking thing may be the weirdest thing by a major presidential candidate I have ever seen. When I first saw it,
I'm going to get to it later. You're blowing my show here.
No, I'm just telling you. You had her yipping a minute ago. That is so weird. It makes anything Republicans do seem normal.
Yeah. Well, between that and she almost changed on the spot in that speech in Iowa, and she echoed it in New Hampshire in terms of trying to out Bernie and out socialist Bernie Sanders, which tells me. Unbelievable. Well, now there's real desperation setting in that campaign.
Well,
in Nevada?
You could have on Saturday, Sanders win Nevada, Trump win South Carolina. Now, that's a revolution in American politics if those two things happen.
The polls, well, it's a little closer in Nevada, especially Hillary had a slight lead, but she was up by 25 points. This was supposed to be the firewall for her. You know, if you read the reports today, they're in the, quote, state of panic is palpable, one reporter wrote, and they are scared to death. And now they're talking about, well, the electorate in Nevada may be too white. There may not be enough minorities. It may not be indicative of what the real campaign is about, which is kind of the argument they made and excuses they made in New Hampshire.
What kind of candidate, though, starts by saying, I can't get any white votes. Please take me somewhere where there aren't any white votes. Think about the whole logic of the Clinton campaign now, and it gets confused. But think about this also. I did a piece that will come out tomorrow. I do 2 free newsletters a week at gingrichproductions.com. And I'm writing about the fact you now have these 2 alternative universes. Here in the middle, you've got the deal-making traditional politicians. Over here, you've got Sanders, who lives in his own world. And over here, you have Trump, who lives in his own world. And the rest of us are having a hard time understanding it because these are turning out to be very big universes. And, you know, I frankly thought when Trump took on George W. Bush in a state where Bush is very popular, about 84% approval, I thought he would suffer in the polls. And he doesn't. People who like Donald Trump are willing to say, you know, he's sincere, he's tough, maybe sometimes he goes a little overboard, but he's doing it in the right direction. And that lead that you're citing that now is pretty clear, it's an amazing lead for him to go into this Saturday with in South Carolina.
He does transcend conventional political gravity. I've used that phrase all throughout this process, and there's been many predictions of his demise, none of which obviously have come true. But it seems the Republican establishment is just in a state of panic. They hate Trump and they hate Cruz, and Trump and Cruz keep being number 1 and 2. So,
well, you had the Clinton establishment's in a state of panic, and the traditional Republican establishment's in a state of panic, and that's because out here, the American people are migrating away from the traditional deal-making center and moving to two very dramatically different visions of America's future.
are you confident, assuming Trump wins South Carolina, it's probably going to be hard to stop him. Now, they're going to head to Nevada, and then, of course, it's the big SEC Super Tuesday primary. That's going to tell us everything. We may now have a very clear picture that it may become unstoppable. So, what advice do you have for him or any of the other candidates here?
Well, I think they all have totally different situations. And you know, Cruz has got to, I think, be the conservative who tries to slow down the train, if you will, when you get to the southern primaries. But I think he and Rubio now are about tied. And, of course, that's part of the problem from the standpoint of how do you stop Trump. He's only at 35%, which if everybody else consolidated might mean he would lose. Might not, by the way, because you can't be sure all those votes would go to anybody other than Trump. But that's the theory of the Republican establishment. I got several emails today from people saying, gee, you know, if you take this, you do this, you do this. The problem they got is Bush isn't going to drop out. Rubio's not going to drop out. Cruz isn't going to drop out. Kasich is not going to drop out. Carson may be less of a factor, but take those four. Why should any one of them say, oh, I'm going to sacrifice and quit so we can consolidate? And the result is, I think you very likely are going to see Trump. I wish he were a little more presidential. I think it would be better for him. I think it would be better for the country. But I got to say, this aggressive, strident style, he is holding his base together in a way that I really thought he would suffer from the debate performance the other night, and it doesn't seem to have had any impact at all.
Do you see a path to him in a general election? Do you see a path that's very different than either Ted? Why are you laughing?
I'm laughing because think about the general election. Does he get to run against
Hillary or the socialists?
This is, by the way, remember, the reason she's barking is that they had a dog in Bill's race that was trained to bark when the candidate lied. I mean, how could you have that dog near Hillary Clinton without it barking all the time? So, you know, on the one hand, you could have Trump versus the most dishonest candidate in modern times, or you could have Bernie promising that he'll eliminate all billionaires and Trump promising to make all of us a billionaire, and you get to decide which of these two futures do you like better. I mean, in some ways, I kind of like the idea of a Trump versus Sanders. Let's choose. You want free enterprise, you want socialism, you want gigantic bureaucracies, you want to be out here working every morning trying to make your way forward. It would be a fascinating race.